What's up, Ego Hackers? It's Chase CSJoseph.life doing another lecture for Season 19. This is Season 19, episode, normally it would be episode 12, but it's episode 13 because there's like an additional lecture at the beginning, and like that's how I know all the episode sequences is because I do everything in the same order, and that's why I can always just randomly tell people, hey, this is the particular episode you're going to watch. But anyway, this is how to cognitively develop INFJs, aka the Paladin, and is also how to become the best INFJ. Brace yourselves. I will be very critical in this particular lecture, as well as very uplifting, at least I hope. Actually, how about I just do none of the above and just tell the truth regardless? How about that? So bit of truth telling tonight. My outline is a little simple, but you know how I get with INFJs, I just go off the walls like crazy, right? And maybe that's why you all like me so much. I don't know. I mean, I am your pedagogue type, so I would hope that being your pedagogue, you'd actually learn something from me, because I've definitely learned from INFJs in my life, like my uncle, for example, or my INFJ mentor. Both of them have influenced me heavily, and is one of the reasons why I'm able to speak to all of you right now in this capacity. Also, thank you for your patience. I know that this lecture is going out a little bit later than planned, and the reason why is because of the Ultimate Messaging Formula product we just released. Thank you for all of you who decided to purchase it for the early bird price and gain access to the new type grid and the other amazing resources that it has. The team thanks you, because we put in a huge amount of work into it, and I'm just very thankful for how everything just worked out with it, and I'm very happy with the product. So anyway, let's get down to business. So INFJs, Paladins, and how to cognitively develop you guys, how to reach cognitive integration, how to reach enlightenment, or how to be your best self. This lecture is not for the faint of heart. And honestly, like in the immortal words of Railgun, my wife, DBAP, aka don't be a pussy. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you, like straight up now. This is not for the faint of heart. Don't be a pussy, because honestly, I'm really frustrated these days with INFJs, being so overly focused on their performance because they're afraid of performing badly, that they end up either choosing to not perform at all, or they end up overperforming, and it just becomes this back and forth of like overcompensating or undercompensating, and it's like, come on guys, like have some balance. But that's what this lecture is all about. This lecture is about how to become the best you. It's about how to reach balance, like, Nirvana, right? Oh, Nirvana. And I was like, wait a minute, that's like not the like proper cadence or terminology for that. But the bottom line is that try and understand that one cannot reach enlightenment, one cannot reach higher levels of consciousness as an INFJ, because I know you folks really love hearing terminology like that, because INFJs are more into astrology than any of the other types. They're more into high levels of consciousness and meditation and all those hokey hippie-esque things more than any of the other types. That's why they're also more into personality typing more than any of the types, because the same people interested in astrology, INFJs, are interested in Jungian analytical psychology, INFJs. And it's kind of funny how, that the same thing goes with people interested in the occult, because for some reason the occult and Jungianism mix together for some reason, but they do. And it's likely because Jung was an occultist, and I'm often told by so many people who claim to be Christians that, like, I am somebody who's denying the faith because I'm talking about the truth of psychology, because it's somehow linked to Jung, and they're too scared about that, because it's like, oh, Chase, you're either demon possessed, or you are a false prophet, or you're someone that doesn't even know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah, none of those criticisms are remotely fair, and I'm sorry, it just comes down to your lack of verification and ignorance, of which INFJs are definitely weak against. But it's all because of lack of balance or lack of integration. Because remember, guys, when you're on the path to enlightenment, integration is everything. Remember, we have the four sides of the mind. Ego, right? Subconscious, unconscious, and superego. Four sides of the mind, but they are disintegrated. They are literally, your soul is literally in a state of disintegration. And it's your job, basically, to make sure that they remain integrated as much as possible. That integration is absolutely key for the future. Uh, the reason why is that in order to maintain like personal self balance, like you talk about like the chakras, for example, and the different chakra gateways, the human brain actually functions in a very similar way. And I have to say though, at least from the INFJ point of view, like when people talk about chakras or reaching higher levels of consciousness, it's really as a result of unlocking cognitive gateways. And those cognitive gateways are very relevant to one's journey of cognitive integration, one's journey of enlightenment, one's journey of reaching, balance with oneself. Kind of like balance of the force, except like balance of the self, etc. And the ultimate result that you get is absolute total mastery of self. That is actually the true definition of enlightenment, mastery of oneself. And that can easily be attained. Maybe it's not so easy. It can be attained from basically cognitive development and reintegrating the four sides of your mind to get them out of a state of disintegration and into a state of integration. And that's what this lecture is all about. Gotta love my amazing 6-minute long introduction. So anyway, but again, how do you identify paladins, aka INFJs? You use the type grid, of course, and the companion tools that go with the type grid, which is the communication style blueprint, the disposition matrix, which you use to identify your temperament, cognitive armaments, which is our resource that we offer to help you understand cognitive axis or cognitive axes, basically the plural, and the quadra foursquare. And you take all of these different identifiers and then you could use them in a deductive reasoning way, maybe even an inductive reasoning approach. But since we're talking INFJs now, I would say it's deductive reasoning because you're amazing TI child for deduction. And then you can basically deduce your type and others. So utilizing these resources allow you to do that. But how you interpret these resources is that your interaction style, your communication style is that of a finisher. Finishers are direct, they're responding, and they're all about progression, aka movement, right? Progression concerns itself more about the journey instead of like the end goal. And that's why INFJs are like super quick instead of like slow. It's a good way to like really show the difference between progression versus outcome is that outcome is I'm only going to get one attempt. I'm only going to bother with making one attempt. So I'm going to do all my planning and everything ahead of time to make that one attempt count. Whereas someone who's progression oriented is I'm not going to plan so much, I'm not going to waste so much time planning. I'm just going to attempt over and over and over and over again until I get it. And that's basically the difference between outcome versus progression. So so keep that in mind, INFJs, to really help you distinguish other people when you're typing. It's very necessary for you to know, and I'm mentioning here because, again, I maintain that INFJs ultimately are the people because they're the most interested in this form of psychology that you folks can become the most capable at it, even better than myself. Or having expectations of children in that way is just ridiculous and can actually be especially damaging to INFJ folk because they want so badly to not be abandoned, and for some reason you INFJs believe that you won't be abandoned if you perform properly. The fact of the matter is that's fundamentally a lie, and we're going to expose that lie very soon. But back to where to find you guys in the type grid. You guys are finishers. You have a hard time starting things, which means you can get into procrastination, bad behavior, which is not exactly ideal. And then also but you're finishers. So once you're into something, you finish it and you see it all the way through. And then, so that's your communication style. Your temperament is the idealist. You're focused on doing the right thing because you're affiliative instead of doing what works. You're focused on what you get out of situations versus what other people get out of situations, even though I often see INFJs being consistently taken advantage of by other people, which is just ridiculous to me because they actually fully know they're being taken advantage of, but they're so afraid of being abandoned that for some reason they just decide to allow it to happen. That's really frustrating to me. So anyway, but yes, and they're also, they're interest-based and they're very abstract. So you guys are all about the what if. You guys can see into your own future, not everyone's future in general. This is one of the biggest problems I have with MBTI circles claiming that introverted intuition is one's ability to see into the future. Yes, sure it is, but only their own personal future and what they want to do and what they desire. not everyone's future or the future in general. That's actually extroverted intuition. And for some reason, a lot of people have a hard time accepting that. But I'm sorry, folks, it's the truth. So that's where you guys are in temperament-wise. Cognitive armaments-wise, this is something that we're going to be doing, that I'm going to be newly talking about. It's cognitive axes, but we're using a different visual aid to help people understand, and I'm going to be debuting it here on this INFJ lecture. Cognitive armaments. So you guys are fire and wind. That is your elemental affinity. It's kind of like if you're going to have like magic, obviously you would win, you wield fire and wind essentially. Like if you're like some kind of like wizard or something, that's pretty cool. But like paladins, so paladins are wielding fire and wind. And then you also, and your preferred weapons are swords and maces. And fire and wind is all about having that will of fire. The fire burns, and it burns brightly, and you're all in your introvert intuition. You know what you want. You have that burning passion, that burning desire to succeed or conquer or move forward in some direction in your life. And then the wind means is that it's calming, it's gentle. It's like flowing over the grass. It's making people comfortable. It's all about performance, even though sometimes you can summon a great tempest. If for some reason the fire is not able to burn the field, well, then you're just going to have to level it to the ground with your big tempest, right? And then obviously there's your sword, your fiery sword of truth that you use to cut other people down, but it cuts you at the same time because it exposes your hypocrisy as well as the hypocrisy of others. And because of the exposing of hypocrisy, it allows other people's hypocrisy to actually be healed. And that's one of the most important things about INFJs is because people are healed as a result of the truth that you speak with your divine inner child to do it with your TI child function. And then you have your mace, where it's like, hey, I'm going to hit you in the face with this, but you're going to appreciate it later. And it while it has the pain of the sword, the fiery sword. Sometimes it's just better to just use the mace and just kind of be like, hey, there's this ethical standard that you guys should like probably be following. And if you don't, well, I'm just going to swing this mace at you until you do, right? It's kind of like an interesting form of compliance there, or ensuring other people are compliant. But that's what extroverted feeling parent is all about: enforcing ethical behavior for other people, or adhering to a code of ethics that is generally accepted by people around you, or some kind of adopted culture or community that you as an INFJ maintain, right? And then obviously those two cognitive armaments put together, sword and mace plus fire and wind, means you guys are Templars. And Templars are the ones that wield those two cognitive armaments, the arsenal of sword and mace, and the affinity of fire and wind. And this is who you are, symbolically speaking, metaphysically speaking, as INFJs. And this ultimately helps breed your life's purpose. And here is your life's purpose right here. The purpose of an INFJ, the purpose of a paladin, is to improve other human beings. Like, that's your job, to improve other human beings, to contribute in some meaningful and major manner for the entire world, but with the end result being a lasting legacy that points to absolute truth. A lasting legacy that people can look upon and learn from basically indefinitely, to make such a mark upon the world and this reality that it is never forgotten for the rest of humanity's entire consciousness, essentially. It is to have that legacy of absolute truth. And why is that? You might be asking, like, well, wait a minute, can I really pull that off? Like, yes, you can, as long as you devote yourself to it. But yes, and again, I know I use Jesus Christ a lot as an example, but he is someone who has made an INFJ who has made a permanent mark upon this planet, because everybody knows who he is. Everyone, for the most part, knows what he's about. Everyone, for the most part, knows what he said, unless you choose to be willfully ignorant about it. But like, yeah, it's not that he's just a popular guy. He's just had left a legacy of absolute truth because he decided to tell the truth, and what he said basically was infallible to a point. No one could find fault with him. This is why I can claim, hey, Jesus never lied to anyone. And because of that profound impact that he made as a result of telling the truth with his divine TI child, with his fiery sword of truth, basically, it's that sword of truth that has fundamentally transformed humanity as we know it. If you use like a Garden of Eden example, what guards the Garden of Eden? It's the fiery sword of truth, right? Human beings can never go back because of the truth that human beings realized as a result of living in the garden, and that's why they had to leave it, because that truth, it's like a baby trying to go back into a womb. It just can't happen, right? It's kind of like when, the disciples are like, or at least anyone is like, how could someone enter the kingdom of heaven unless they're born again? I can't go back into my womb of my mother. Like it's that entire concept, and I find that very interesting. So this brings the INFJ down to the path to enlightenment. And the path to enlightenment for an INFJ is very, very interesting. So let's talk about what the path to enlightenment is. The path to enlightenment, or how to be the best INFJ, how to reach cognitive integration, to bring your soul into balance, okay? You bring your soul into balance, and then also reach higher levels of consciousness as an INFJ, as a paladin, to be able to wield your fiery sword of truth, to become the righteous one, or the most righteous of us all, and become that beacon of hope, that beacon of righteousness, as that example of strength and light and fire and wind for the rest of the entire world, so that all of humanity can follow behind you for the trail that you are blazing forth for humanity, such as previous INFJs have done so in the past, like Gandhi, for example. You have that opportunity to do that yourself. And to be able to do that, you obviously have to walk the path to enlightenment. But let's talk about what the path to enlightenment is mechanically. So when somebody is born, or maybe even before they're born, I really don't know, but they have cognitive functions. Every human being has cognitive functions. And they start out developmentally with a hero function. And the hero function is known as the first gateway into the mind. And many could argue this is actually maybe a chakra gateway. It possibly is. It possibly is. And I would imagine like maybe there's additional gateways, and gateways change within the mind as you develop your other gateways. Or maybe if you're able to go into specifically one of the four sides of your mind and stay there potentially for a prolonged period of time, you might be able to go use your current gateways in a different way than you were using them before, and perhaps that could potentially unlock additional gateways. Currently, I know of 4 gateways as relevant to the 4 sides of the mind, but there actually could theoretically be 8, and it's something that I'm toying with right now in terms of the gateways, cognitive gateways. But I just don't know exactly how to really put words to it. Like, I intuitively know there's something there, which is the next level of gateways. I just don't exactly know how to go about doing that. And it's funny because if I remember correctly, there was 9 chakra gateways, and I think Avatar: The Last Airbender, which me and Railgun need to watch that show together, because she really liked Legend of Korra, and also we need to finish the final 2 seasons of Legend of Korra as well. But I really want to watch those episodes with her. And there's a particular episode where one of Aang's teachers talking to him about chakras and how those chakras are opened up in their various gateways. Well, the path to enlightenment, in terms of taking the 4 sides of your mind and integrating them and creating balance and self-mastery and reaching enlightenment as a human being, as an INFJ, as a paladin, it's basically pretty much the same process. So I invite you guys to go on YouTube one time and look up Avatar: The Last Airbender and chakras, and actually watch a YouTube video that explains it, because quite frankly, that show within popular culture has explained unlocking one's gateways perfectly. And I think out of everybody in this audience, that INFJs would benefit the most from that teaching, especially since I think Aang might actually be an INFJ. There's a good chance of it. He's very affiliative. He's a very TIFE user, cares about other people. I'm not sure if he's an SINE user or if he is an NISE user, if he's fire and wind versus earth and water. But I think he probably, I don't know, I go back and forth. I really go back and forth. I mean, the writing changes because they had some writers change every now and then when it comes to writing the character of Aang, of Avatar Aang. But regardless, I think there's definitely some value there, at least in terms of the teachings about the chakras. And, these gateways, these cognitive gateways, as I call them, or these, chakras, as we know, I think it helps best explain to, INFJs what the path of enlightenment is. But let's go a little bit deeper than that. Obviously, you have the hero function, you have the inferior function, the nemesis function, and the demon function. Those four functions, basically, and then like I think I have here on my whiteboard a little bit more. Like the inferior function is like the infant, then it becomes aspirational. And then you have the villain, which becomes the ally, the unaware function, which becomes the master, the foolish function, which becomes the wise function, the demon function, which becomes the angel function, etc. I think these functions really demonstrate, a journey of enlightenment as you're developing yourself, because your cognitive functions are able to take different roles as you grow in your life. And this is why we have quarter life crisis and midlife crisis and 3/4 life crisis. A lot of people don't understand that there actually is a 3/4 life crisis for people that actually get to that point. And I think it's definitely a lesson in wisdom or humility for sure, whichever lesson anyone hasn't answered. But regardless, each gateway you end up having to learn a lesson. There's a core lesson that each human being has to learn as a result of mastering one's gateways. So let's talk about what those four gateways are. Obviously, there's the hero gateway, and unlocking that gateway allows one to reach a high level state of development, which gives them the ability to become a responsible or the most responsible human being. Then there's the second gateway, which leads into their subconscious, whereas the first one leads into their ego. The second gateway is where they lead into their subconscious, and that's where they are able to obtain humility. And then the third gateway, which is their nemesis function or their villain function, that is the path to wisdom. And then once they've mastered all three of those gateways, then they're able to move into the path to mastery, the self-mastery, the path, or the angelic path, the path of the angel. And this is all obtainable. This is all attainable by anyone. And with that being said, there are some core lessons that INFJs need to learn first to be able to actually unlock those. But let's actually talk about how the gateways actually fundamentally work. So we have the four sides of the mind here: ego, subconscious, unconscious, superego. And I said this earlier in season 22, episode 7, which is the cognitive transitions for ENTPs. But the cognitive transitions themselves, that thing that allows you to move from your ego to subconscious, unconscious, superego, is definitely the process by which you develop your gateways and grow your gateways and gain mastery over your cognitive gateways, your chakra gateways, for example. You gain this ability for yourself, right? Through practice. It's really practice makes perfect in this case. But how you practice is different, because you could be practicing in a negative way, or you could be practicing in a positive way. Or look at it this way. I like to say chaos versus order, right? Because life, yin and yang situation, the yin, the great chaos, or the yang, or the yang is the great firmament, or the great order, basically. And everyone is in this balance between order and chaos. And it's no different than our chakra gateways or our cognitive gateways, basically. And to use them, you can enter in your gateway in a chaotic form, or in a yin-like form, or you can enter it into a yang-like form, right? And that's fascinating to me. But look at it this way, like, if you're going to take a bottle, like, of water, right, and then pour out that water. I know I'm repeating myself from previous lectures, but some people just like watching the lectures individually for themselves. So I like to retain some of the additional scaffolding with what I'm saying in this lecture. When they pour out this water, right, it's going to go ka-thunk, 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 because there's not enough air outside of the bottle getting into the bottle yet. So the water is raging. It's like coming out. It's very chaotic. But as soon as there's enough air, the stream becomes still, and then it's short, it's sweet, it's orderly, it's perfect, and it's still, it's graceful, right? It's not chaotic. It's very solid. It's a solid stream instead of a chaotic stream. And because the elements are interacting with each other in a more controlled or more orderly manner instead of a very chaotic manner, right? So this would be like the difference between lightning versus a battery. Harnessing that energy versus having it chaotically strike, right? It's like having electricity and harnessing the energy. That's basically what you're doing. You are harnessing your chakra gateways within and being able to reach enlightenment as a result of developing them. and then you become someone who has your highest self, your mastery of self as a human being. And then you're able to actually turn your human condition, your propensity for evil, your propensity for sin, into the propensity of greatness. Basically, greatness is everything at that point. So, with that being said, think of your mind, the four sides of the mind, like a farm, right? And each one of the four sides of your mind is it's a farm. They're all fields, basically, and your job is to cultivate those fields. You're a farmer, right? And fields have, you have lots of seeds, information that you take in for your perception functions, and then you have lots of tools that you use to cultivate those seeds and make decisions upon them. And that's your judgment functions, etc. And and then developing them, etc. I'm losing my voice. I've been talking all day. All these things are absolutely necessary. There's also an irrigation system where there's water. And just think about you yourself as the water that is sprayed upon or moved upon or irrigating this great farm, these four fields, these four different crops. And your ego is the crop that you're used to making. It's the crop that you're really good at cultivating. It's very dependable. You know what you're going to get because you're used to it and you're good to go. Now, the subconscious represents another crop, and you're afraid of doing it because you're not sure if you're going to get a really good return on investment and whatnot, and you're just really unsure about it. And then there's the crop below that, or even below your ego's crop, basically, which is your unconscious. And it's the crop that you haven't even considered making yet. You haven't even considered making it yet. And you're like, should I even do this? Is this something I even want to? And you kind of worry about like what you're even going to use that land for, right? And then there's the final crop, which is like the superego, and that crop, that field, that you could be cultivating, it's going to be it's going to be the best. You also know that it's going to be like really, really hard work to do it, but you get the most return on investment. You could be rich from it. Everyone wants it. It is the stuff. It is exactly what people are looking for. It's what everyone wants to eat, or everyone wants to buy it from you, etc. It's in high demand. And INFJs, who are very arrogant, fail to properly develop their subconscious field, or INFJs who are very worried or stubborn or very foolish, end up experimenting with what they should or what they would want to put into their unconscious field, and that just fails on them. And then there are those INFJs who like to cut corners and just try to go straight for the superego field. It's like, well, if I focus all my effort on developing the superego field, I'm going to have the most success, right? And then all of a sudden it just blows up in their face because they have no idea what to do. This is literally how your mind works. And look at it this way. The superego itself, just like all four sides of the mind, each of them have their own persona, their own personality type. It's like having four human beings, actual human beings in your head. And your superego actually is the most powerful, and it's the strongest of them all. The ego, however, potentially, it is as strong as the superego, but the difference is that the superego is more powerful, or at least more capable in the long run, and to the point where it's like it's got the power of the cosmos in it itself. The strong demonic or angelic power that is definitely way beyond your own capabilities, the ego. But the difference is that the superego, it's a superfluous ego, and then its default state is being like a parasite attached to your head, right? And it exists as this parasite, and at least behaves like a parasite, I would say. It behaves like an interloper. When the reality situation is, it's not really an interloper. It's you. It's part of you. It's a piece of you that needs to be brought into balance. It needs to be brought in with the rest of the four sides of your mind so that you can become the best you. The problem is that it has no respect for the ego person or the subconscious person or the unconscious person that you are. It has no respect for you, like at all. Like it has no respect for you whatsoever, because it sees you as someone who's irresponsible. It sees you as someone who is it sees you as someone who is arrogant. It sees you as somebody who is foolish. And it's like, why would I want to have anything to do with you? So it's like, okay, yeah, you want to borrow my power. You want to come down to this field. You want to see what you can do with it. Fine. Just know that it's cursed, and it's really the most cursed side of your brain. It's the most cursed side of your soul is the superego. It is cursed. And what is a curse? A curse is when you get less in return than what you put into something. And the promise of the superego, it's like the Faustian deal with the devil. It's like making a deal with the devil. The superego is like, great, I'll give you an inch in exchange for a mile, right? This is why, like, when INJs are really pissed off at somebody because they're in their superego and they're angry, they'd be willing to gouge out both of their eyes if they know that they can gouge out one of your eyes, right? It's just how they work. So they have that level of self-destruction. They're willing, they would like kill themselves over doing just a possible, hit to you that's not really going to do as much. And that's how the superego is. It's like, well, you're going to have to, sell your soul, your body, or sell everything about you in exchange for this one little thing. And it's unfair. I mean, like, from an interest-based point of view, you're not actually getting much out of it. You're getting far less out of it. So why bother? Because is it really that important that one little inch is there? Because you could take the quick route, you could be that rabbit in the race who's just going to, speed up ahead and then fall asleep and whatnot and then actually lose the race. You got the superego with you. It looks good. It looks like you're going to win. It looks like everything's guaranteed, right? And then you lose somehow. Why? Well, it's because the person who was devoted to hard work, they actually earned it and they actually made it happen. And the superego knows this. It knows that it's going to have this curse-like behavior when interacting with you. And it really doesn't want to have anything to do with you. It actually hates you. It hates the ego. It has hatred towards you. It doesn't respect you. And it doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And it's not until you can convince the superego or develop that field or cultivate that field until you have cultivated the other fields within your soul. Yes, you're a paladin and you have the sword of truth, but honestly, sometimes you just need to turn your sword into a plowshare. You know what I'm saying? And get that motherfucking plow on the field and put in some work. Instead of just being like, oh, well, I'm afraid that I might not actually be good at plowing right now, so I'm just not going to bother. And they're like, okay, wow, thank you for being like the most worthless human being I've ever met in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you're too afraid of performing, right? And this is one of the challenges that INFJs, have. And by the way, like, I'm pragmatic. If you guys don't like me dropping swear words or F-bombs, like, seriously, just get over yourself. I'm not going to change myself, okay? I'm a pragmatic person. Pragmatic people cuss. It is what it is. Well, it's not proper. I'm like, okay, don't get all affiliative on me. Like, I really don't care. Like, you come here to have me tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth in the way that I'm going to tell it to you. And, it is what it is. Some people have a problem with that. I've been criticized about that recently, but honestly, like, I'm just going to be who I am and just not care. I need to, like, not care about how people think about me. I just need to be, like, real, because that's what's really important. It's my own importance is, and anyone's importance for that matter, is based on how real I am, right? And that's just kind of what we need to accept from one another. So, but anyway, the bottom line is that at the end of the day, we need to get to a point where, you recognize that your superego doesn't want to have anything to do with you. And partly because, human beings just like cutting corners, and it always just blows up in their face, and their entire life is just absolutely destroyed. And then it takes themselves out with other people. And we see this from time to time to time to time again. So with that being said, the object of the game is, the path to enlightenment literally is to utilize your irrigation system to slowly learn how to develop the other crops on the other side of your mind, so that once the superego crop has seen that the other crops are well cultivated, well maintained, and handled, at that point, that's like, great, I am ready. I am ready to be integrated. I am ready to be handled. I am ready to be cultivated. I am ready to be irrigated. Please be my farmer. It is a willing participant. It no longer has hatred for the rest of your mind or the other sides of your mind. It actually, it's actually seeking to love you. It's seeking to be loved in that moment. It's actually seeking you out, and then it's a willing participant. And it will gladly lend you its power. Why? Well, because it finally trusts you. It finally respects you, right, as your own person. Because otherwise, that hatred will be there, and that superego will be like, well, I should be the ego, because the ego is obviously irresponsible And who cares about the subconscious? This INFJ is super arrogant. This pal doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks he's wielding the sword of truth and being truthful about it, when in reality the situation is he's just some stupid hypocrite. And then there's the unconscious side, and it's like, ooh, wow, way to like grandstand, way to like make yourself look good, way to make yourself sound important, way to appear to have authority because you see yourself as someone who's just doing the right thing, and because other people around you may or may not do the right thing, or what you perceive or what you judge as the right thing. Then all of a sudden you give yourself license to elect yourself some kind of authority figure over them because you're the more righteous person than they are. Wow, you self-righteous POS. Like, really? That's kind of like how, that's just kind of how the superego views the INFJ. But all of that can be undone. Cognitive integration and what leads to balance and enlightenment, that can all be achieved. That can all be achieved consistently. And something that I recommend everyone do for themselves and for others, because without that, well, what happens when you die and you haven't reached your full development yet? What happens when you don't reach your full potential? I think it's all of our responsibility to understand just how far we can take ourselves and how much better for ourselves can we actually be. And instead of specializing and going into the level of hatred and evil and the path to evil and doing that, very expedient, having that expedient relationship with the superego, maybe we should be having the meaningful relationship with the superego and actually being willing to take the time and actually get our hands dirty. Because if you think about it, if you're a farmer and your mind is this field, for example, lose my voice, probably use some water, but with these fields being cultivated, some people, INFJs, like, they end up getting so entitled that they don't actually go out of their way to get their hands dirty. And if you guys ever notice some INFJs out there who are unwilling to get their hands dirty, it's like, oh, thank you, beauty. I really appreciate that so much. Thank you. It's just the most annoying thing in the world. Let me give you an example. I actually knew a kid in Northern California. He was an INFJ, and all he would do is he'd go to he graduated high school. He got a job at PF Chang's, and he was just working at PF Chang's, buying drugs at PF Chang's from other people, and just smoking out, not really doing anything, watching Naruto at home, jacking off, not really having any use whatsoever, because he just wouldn't get his hands dirty. And I gave him the opportunity to get his hands dirty. I was willing to, be his pedagogue. I was willing to mentor him and elevate him and give him a better life. But no, he just didn't want to, because that would just cut into his chill out time, right? Wow, you're really useful. And then he'd get all depressed and then suicidal about how useless he was. And it's like, yeah, it's because you're feeding the wrong part of yourself, dude. Because, well, I'm too afraid to actually perform. I'm actually too afraid to actually do it and pull it off. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, you're basically completely wasting everyone's time at this point. And maybe I should take your farming tools away from you and give them to somebody else who actually will use them. How about that, huh? Because maybe I should take away your freedom and your choices by taking away your farming equipment, and that way you're never going to develop. Is that really a future you'd want, INFJs, to find yourself in that position where someone like me, potentially the Grim Reaper, comes for you and takes away your choice, takes away your opportunity to grow? What would you do then, huh? What if all of a sudden you were in this position where all of a sudden you lost your ability to actually develop your chakra gateways or your cognitive gateways, huh? What were you going to do? What would you do in that situation? Oh, that sounds like death, right? So maybe you should be a little bit more responsible. Maybe you should humble yourselves. Maybe you shouldn't be like foolish, and actually be focused on this path to self-mastery. But what if it doesn't work out for me? Okay, that's just a stupid excuse. Let's be honest. That's a really lame excuse, and it's a cop-out. You need to realize that everyone has the capacity to do this and has the capacity to do it in rapid speed as long as you focus. Focus, and I is all about one's focus and willpower. Focus, right? It's why Introverted Intuition Hero is a sniper rifle, not a shotgun like Extroverted Intuition Hero, right? A shotgun goes in all directions but short range, But sniper rifle, one direction, super far range, super effective, optimized, and on point and on target. This is the difference, right? Absolutely, absolutely necessary. So with that being said, guys, you have to realize just how critical it is to be on this path to enlightenment. I can't stress it enough, because you have to be willing to get your hands dirty and stop being afraid of doing a bad job. No one cares. Like, I'll be honest with you, no one cares if you perform poorly unless it directly affects them. And even if it does directly affect them, some people are willing to tolerate it for a while, and some people are willing to give you grace and mercy and forgiveness, because you forgive other people, because you can be pretty merciful and forgiving yourself. Why can't you allow yourself to accept mercy and forgiveness? Why can't you allow yourself to accept gifts from other people and recognize that mercy towards you is also a gift, or grace towards you is also a gift? Why can't you, INFJs, accept that? Why are you so arrogant as to accept that? You do realize not accepting gifts from other people is a form of arrogance, right? I found that out pretty easily. Do you know why? I got a perfect example right here. I'll show it to you right here. Let me tell you, before my wife and I were even in a relationship, she bought me these. You know what these are? These are gunmetal Oakleys. She's named after this. Why? Because I had to humble myself. I'm an FE user like you, INFJs. I had to humble myself. We weren't even officially in a relationship. It wasn't even a date, but we just ended up at the mall one together, and she bought me these Oakley glasses randomly with her FE child. Could I really be so arrogant to allow myself to refuse such a gift? Are you out of your mind? Humble yourselves. You guys are so arrogant when you won't accept gifts from other people, right? And this is one of the problems that you guys face with your second gateway. It's so frustrating, and I'm tired of it, guys. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of how you're so self-deprecating and so self-righteous at the same time. Oh my gosh. I had to deal with this week actually with a friend of mine because because I got on the phone with my friend, and she was with this INFJ, and she was just having a hard day with this INFJ, and I'm like, look, you are so self-deprecating, and you get so bent out of shape because you're not being given the opportunity to actually contribute, but that's because no one trusts you. And no one trusts you is because you're either giving to get, or you're so self-deprecating and it just comes off as fake. It's so fake because you're contradicting yourself. You're expecting everybody else around you to not contradict themselves, but you contradict your own self because you're a mother effing hypocrite. You're such a hypocrite because it's like, I can't accept gifts from people, but then you're also so self-deprecating at the same time. And it's like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to manipulate people? Like, what are you getting out of it, right? Do you guys not see how gross that is? Do you not see how annoying that is when you come off? Humble yourselves. I had to humble myself. I had to realize that this is a woman who's just trying to love me and give me a gift, and I just need to get over myself and accept it from her and accept it gladly. So I did, and I did my duty, and I accepted it, and it's made me very happy. And this is one of the foundational principles of my marriage to Railgun, because we realize that our FE childs just want to give to one another, and we have to humble ourselves to allow the other person to give to each other without us being self-deprecating. It's been a huge life lesson, and she has had the benefit of learning that lesson far sooner in her life than later in her life as a result of our relationship. And I have learned the lesson as a confirmation to what I already knew was true, but for some reason I was being a stupid ass hypocrite and not actually practicing what I preached until she came along. You see what I'm saying? You guys aren't the only hypocrites around here, so am I. But maybe we could probably work together and realize how we should stop being hypocrites together and help each other get on towards the path to enlightenment, right? So here's the squeeze, or here's the rub, basically. When you're in your farm with your 4 sides of the mind, recognize that you have a limited supply of water. That water represents you. You could water any of these 4 sides of your mind, and you have to be you're a water manager basically, and you're used to irrigating your ego all the time because that's what you start off with. You start off with that field early in your childhood. Congratulations, right? You're an ego farmer, right? And your water is there. But then you can open up the other little irrigation gateways, like chakra gateways, cognitive gateways, into the other 4 fields in your major farm, and take that water and then make half that water separated between your ego and your subconscious to the other, or separate into thirds between your ego, unconscious, and subconscious constantly. Or maybe you could put all the water in one, or put another water in the other, or drain them real quick. In some ways, you can get so good at irrigating the sides of your mind and have this amazing pump system developed because you're getting practice with your cognitive transitions. INFJs, practice makes perfect. You know what I'm saying? Practice literally makes perfect. Oh, INFJs, so obsessed with perfection. Gee, I wonder how they do it. Oh, that's right, because they need to practice. Oh, but I'm so afraid of actually doing it because I'm going to perform badly. And then they don't practice, and then obviously they're not perfect. Then they get depressed about it, and then they end up in a mental institute because they tried to commit suicide. Oh, wait, that sounds exactly like that kid at P.F. Chang's I was just telling you. And it just becomes this literal stupid cycle that you INFJs get into, where it's like you won't allow yourselves practice to get on the path to perfection because you're too afraid of failing in your practice. Are you out of your mind? Do you guys not understand how stupid that actually is? Do you guys not understand that? So you have to understand, don't do that. Seriously, don't do that. Don't be that person. Right? Don't be that person. Instead, manage your water appropriately, right? Because if you and eventually you're going to have to figure out, okay, well, what's the rate at which I pour water between the irrigation pipe system? Do I do it super quick? Do I do it small? What's the pressure level? There's all these different things that you got to know as an INFJ when managing your cognitive transitions to be able to reach enlightenment. We're going to talk about that, right? So remember, 4 gateways, which are also your irrigation gateways, and your water, how you transition is you moving your water, sharing that water between multiple sides of your mind, multiple fields, or concentrating them all in one field, or rapidly, or slowly, or with different pressures, different rates, of moving that personal soul water, that soul energy between the other sides of your mind, those fields, to cultivate those crops, to be able to earn your way into the superego instead of just cutting corners and being expedient about it. You see, this is literally how the path to enlightenment works. Develop your cognitive gateways, your chakra gateways, and you will reach your highest self. And then then you wouldn't have to deal with C.S. Joseph telling you to your face that you're worthless. I mean, you wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. You wouldn't have to deal with C.S. Joseph in your face telling you that you're paranoid. You wouldn't have to have C.S. Joseph in your face telling you that you're hateful, that you're selfish, that you're entitled, right? That you're lazy, right? That you're ignorant, that you don't verify your beliefs. You wouldn't have to deal with C.S. Joseph telling you that you harm human beings more than you heal them, right? You wouldn't have to deal with C.S. Joseph telling you to your face that you're a hypocrite, right? I don't know how many times I've told you INFJs these things. Now you're like, wow, he's being super hard on us right now. I'm like, of course I am. You guys have to understand your importance. You have to understand humanity will not move forward without the paladin leading the way. Because the paladin has the ability to be in combat while healing simultaneously through the sword and mace cognitive armament, through that arsenal, right? That's your guys' purpose, the fiery sword of truth. But how can that person lead humanity if they're weak? How can that person lead humanity if they're a hypocrite? Right? How can they? They can't. So if they can't do that, then what does that make them? It makes them worthless. If they cannot fulfill that function, they can't worthless. And INFJs often oscillate between worthlessness and being the most useful out of everybody. And that's what I'm here to do, to teach you how to master your cognitive gateways, your chakra gateways, so that you can have self-mastery, so that you can always guarantee that you are useful. You just have to make the choice. Because guess what, guys? Everything about INFJs, everything you do is 100% intentional, which means out of all the types, guess what? Out of all the types, the fact that you're NI hero and FE parent means INFJs, out of all the types and interest-based, INFJs, out of all the types, have the least excuses. Because whether or not you believe it or not, you have all the advantages. You have all the advantages, and you have the least excuses. You can literally get through any obstacle. You can literally potentially become the strongest of us all. You can literally lead humanity on a new path. Part the Red Sea, for example, right? You could definitely potentially save us all or change the world in a huge, meaningful way. You could do that. But instead, you squander it, right? On what? Your self-aggrandizement, right? What your ENFP shadow wants you to do, right? To make yourself look important or make yourself look smart, right? You get all, or when you're trying to like run your wolf pack and you care more about your aesthetics and your six pack instead of actually having a relationship with somebody, and the gym becomes your god instead of you putting the proper focus on the person who actually loves you, right? Because the aesthetics are more important to you than the actual relationship. Wow, I've seen that so many times. That was actually shown recently in The Bachelorette. That guy that introduced himself by being on top of like a limo or a car and then going rawr like a lion or whatnot. That was an INFJ, guys. An ESTP focused, arrogant, TI child, God complexed INFJ. It's just like absolutely ridiculous. Gosh, this screen thing like needs to like seriously stop. I don't know why it's doing this. Anyway, so about halfway done here. You know, we're coming up on an hour. Interesting how that goes. But yeah, guys, you got to work on your gateways. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the ego. The hero function comes in as Nih Hero. And in your development, you start off with Nih Hero, and you want things. You have desire, you have passion, you have that fire within your soul. This is why you're fire and wind. And the fire comes from Nih, and the wind comes from extroverted sensing, SE. And this is why, you know, everything you do is with intent, which means you have no excuse. Because if you make a decision or you do an action, guess what? You will hang for it. And you will be held responsible because everything you do is intentional. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as things done with inappropriate nothing is unintentional with INFJs. You can make it look unintentional, but you guys don't bumble, and you know it because everything you do is deliberate. You're the most deliberate. You are the most deliberate of us all. The most deliberate. How dare you try to deceive us into making us believe that you're not so deliberate when you really actually are. I can see your BS manipulation from here. Your little manipulations. Let go of that. Because guess what? I can see it, and I'm going to expose it to other people. And it's, wait a minute, aren't you guys the ones supposed to be exposing other people with the fire sword of truth? Well, don't worry. The icy sword of truth is following you around, making sure that if not, I will mock you and expose you to everyone around you for the fraud that you really are. If you guys aren't inconsistent yourselves, do not become a hypocrite. I will come for you. And or if you're not being a hypocrite and you're living the way that you should be living, well, then you'll have my loyalty. You'll have my support, and we will change the world together. And I will help widen your path or open your path forward so that you can lead humanity through that path. That's my job. Just as John the Baptist opened the path up for Jesus Christ, right? That's my job. That's my role. It's your role to walk the path that Jesus walked. That's your role. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this, and I'm hard on you guys because I love you. I love all of you people. It's really important. You guys are the best hope for humanity. I have to be hard on you. I have to teach you. I have to be your pedagogue. It is my responsibility. It is my duty. It is also my honor to do so because somebody has to do it, and the world's not going to change if the most worthless of us all become the most useful, right? Now, by now you're like, well, you're just talking about immature INFJs, and I don't know how many times I've heard that, and it's like, they're probably INFPs complaining. It's like, no, guys, actually, I'm talking about all INFJs because remember, any human being can regress. Any mature human being can become immature or behave immaturely. It is arrogant to think otherwise. It is arrogant to probably believing with your TE trickster because I can just believe about anything with my TE trickster, right? Oftentimes, I don't know how many times I've heard INFJs talk about weird things that could be potentially hoaxes and thinking that they're actually true, when the reality situation is they've just been easily deceived by TE, because their TE tricks are just capable of believing in just about anything. Kind of like that guy who believes that he can talk to water and change the molecular structure of water, which is really hard to prove and whatnot. I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm just using it as an example. A lot of people claim it's a hoax, but I often see INFJs buying it hook, line, and sinker, thinking that, oh, this is special knowledge that came to me and it makes me feel special. No, stop trying to feel special and start being true. When you go out of your way to feel special, or you get all depressed that you feel special or not feel special, that's a form of arrogance. Life is not about you people trying to make yourselves feel special. I'm so tired of NFJs, especially INFJs, going out of the way to try to make themselves feel special, when they should just avoid feeling special forever and not care about it anymore, and instead care about telling the truth, care about behaving truly, care about not being a hypocrite, right? So, with that being said, the hero function, introverted intuition hero, the first gateway. What develops first in a child is the hero function. What develops second is the child function. Both of those, the optimistic functions, they develop first. The hero and the child. When the hero and the child team up together, it creates a cognitive loop. This is where immaturity can come, and that can be like a serious problem. Cognitive looping, which Dave Superpowers talks about a lot, but I was actually informed recently that he was not the one who originally came up with it. There are actually some others way long before him who have. And my mentors taught me about cognitive looping years and years ago, before I even discovered Dave Superpowers existed. But cognitive looping is basically a form of cognitive teaming, because cognitive functions can team up with each other. Like when the demon function teams up with the child function, it's known as the demonic child. A very interesting concept that my INFJ mentor taught me, right? It's nice that he was being useful in that moment, right? And improving me, fulfilling his life's purpose. He did fulfill his life's purpose because I'm here talking to you now, and he improved me, and now I'm giving back to you folks, right? That's how this works. It's literal quid pro quo. It's also the law of reciprocity, right? And I'm reciprocating to you now by giving you this lecture to help improve you all, because I care about you that much. And as much as I would hope my own son would hear this lecture so that he can improve himself as well, because I love him dearly. And potentially his legacy of absolute truth that I hope that he will bring will ultimately become my legacy of absolute truth through him, which I hope. And if not, it doesn't matter, because guess what? Other INFJs or anyone else would potentially take up the cause, and that's fine by me. So the child function develops after the hero function, right after, and then they could team up together. And this is like, all of a sudden, the INFJ is like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Whatever I want is true. Whatever I want must be true. Whatever I want has to be facts. I could believe anything, right? And then the child is off with the hero, and the hero is a bad example of the child, because the child just wants to be just like the hero. Yay! But then they're getting into a lot of trouble together. There's a lot of collateral damage. Towns are being leveled. The battles against the villain, and the villain just seems getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then the infant comes along, and then the hero's like, "Oh crap! Here's the infant," because the infant is the insecurity. The infant is the fear. The infant is the inferior function. The inferior function develops third as a result. And then after that, because through cognitive axis, the inferior brings forth the parent, and then the parent function is underdeveloped. And this is literally the default state of an INFJ. This is an irresponsible INFJ. This is an INFJ who has not mastered their first gateway in an orderly or a chaotic manner, a yin manner versus a yang manner. And the yin, the chaotic manner is that it creates this cognitive loop where they're pouring all that water through that irrigation system through the hero function, and then the hero function, I'm losing my voice. It's going to be an interesting night. Gosh, I'm so glad my wife gave me some water. She's so caring and very attentive to me as an ESTP. It's very impressive, actually. It makes me feel like really wanted, more wanted than ever. It's kind of interesting how, like, her NI inferior, which becomes NI aspirational, can make any hero feel far more wanted than any NI hero I've ever met. Think about that for a second. Think about that, right? So the point is, When the child is flying around with the hero, the parent is underdeveloped, and then guess what? Your ego is irresponsible, and then all of a sudden you're making decisions. You're very impulsive, and it's like, it's true that I want to have sex with this woman. It's true that I think I can heal this person through sex. I think and then I think I can strengthen these people, and you arrogantly elect yourself their chief, and then you end up becoming this chief of a village of losers, and you end up mirroring these losers, and you yourself become a loser, even though you didn't start out a loser. Then you find yourself being a loser like the rest of them. Because while you were improving them, or at least you were on the quest to improve them, you actually took on all their bad behaviors. Wow. Because you mirrored them. Wow. And it's because you're irresponsible. You're irresponsible because you'd realize if your FE parent was actually developed that it was socially irresponsible to be around those people to begin with. But instead it's like, no, I know I can save them. I know I can make them loyal to me. I know I can perform for them. I know I can go all the way in this case. I know I can be there for them. I want to do this. I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want. And it's like, I don't care if you know what you want. You're just literally no different than a child screaming on the floor at a store who didn't get his way because his mother didn't get him a toy. There's no difference. No difference. I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want. NITI cognitive loop. I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want. Wow. Pathetic. So anyway, recognize the difference there, INFJs. Recognize that's like not the appropriate way of doing it. So instead you have to develop your FE parent. So instead of being so focused on performing for others and being so focused to think of yourself more highly than you ought to because you're being a hypocrite, because you're being arrogant at that moment, instead recognize that you need to be socially responsible. So look at it this way. What happens when you're socially irresponsible? What happens when you allow yourself to be around those people that are like basically lower than you because you think you could be there for them or support them in some capacity? What happens? They pull you down to them, you mirror their behaviors, and you become a loser just like them. What happens? Well, why is that irresponsible, right? It's irresponsible because you're enabling them. You're actually causing those losers even more harm by participating in their behaviors. You're enabling them. Read the book When Helping Hurts, right? Read the book Codependent No More. When your NI hero and your TI child is flying around without no FE parent in there, guess what happens? You become codependent and you start enabling people. Think about all those INFJs, that are still living with their parents, failure to launch because they're codependent to their parents, codependent with their mother, right? Enabling their parents, right? While being potentially enabled, right? Super enabling. And they're thinking they're helping someone when they're actually doing harm every time. You think yourself a great healer? Think again. Actually, you're not, because you're socially irresponsible and your superego knows it. And you will never, ever reach enlightenment. You will never unlock your chakra gateways until you become something so much more. A responsible human being. A human being that actually understands that you shouldn't be enabling other people because you are. Stop enabling. It's just like that kid from P.F. Chang's enabling drug addicts instead of criticizing them. The TI child has to recognize that the FE parent gets in there and then forces the TI child to criticize people while simultaneously making sure that the TI child is criticizing, the INFJ with TI child, because the criticism goes both ways. And the FE parent will make sure that the INFJ is behaving and conducting themselves in a socially responsible manner so that the INFJ is not a hypocrite. Otherwise, we get those INFJs who are so critical towards everyone else when they're guilty of doing the same thing. Gosh, cheeky feckers, right? To quote my INFJ, both of my first INFJ coaching clients, which were my first two clients I've ever had. Both of them, interestingly enough, played EVE Online, and one was in Phoebe Freeport Republic, and the other one was in, gosh, I forgot, they were in the drone regions for the longest time before the drones were ultimately conquered by Pandemic Legion and NC Dot, etc. But it's another story. Actually, before the Russians came in, and now NCPL owns that. But that's just a video game. Fun game though. But anyway, yeah, your underdeveloped parent is irresponsible, and then you're enabling people, you're harming people, you're being very codependent. You think you're saving them with your hero, right? You think you're telling them the truth and you're building them up with your TI child, right? You know, because they're optimistic. You're very optimistic. You're very optimistic about hurting people. You're very optimistic. I know what I want. I know what I want. You're very optimistic about enabling them. Like, how can you do this? How can you do this to people, INFJs? You need to be responsible. Sometimes it's responsible to let people suffer in the ditch because they won't learn anything unless you do. Sometimes you have to be okay with abandoning them. Sometimes you have to be okay with criticizing them. Sometimes you have to be okay to take actions that make it look like you hate them when you're actually doing it out of love. Think about it. Person dies, he goes to hell. The demons are torturing him, and he's crying out, "Why are you torturing me? Why are you doing this to me?" And they're like, "Oh, we're trying to save your soul, dude. Oh, you're actually angels, not demons." You have to look at it differently. Stop living your life as a glass half full. Start living it as a glass half empty. Now, hold on. The cliche there is like reversed. Yeah, because you INFJs are glass half full people. That's your problem. You keep enabling people because you refuse to allow your FE parent to tell and teach your TI child the truth. And the truth is, life is a glass half empty. And you need to point that out to people and nitpick them till they change. Just make sure that when you nitpick them, you adhere to your own nitpicks. Hypocrites, right? No hypocrisy. Or are you like that one INFJ I just criticized 4 nights ago when I literally told him to his face that, "Oh, are you literally that guy that's not willing to criticize your best friend because you're afraid of being guilty of the same, or because you already know you're guilty of the same things you'd criticize her for?" Wow. That's pathetic. How about you actually be responsible so that when you're responsible, your criticism actually matters, right? Because don't you INFJs want to matter? Don't you? Well, maybe you should get some personal responsibility and choose people around you and actually hold yourself to a higher standard of ethics, right? And realize that sometimes you have to harm people to help them. You have to harm them to heal them. You have to break them down before you could build them back up, and that requires criticism. And you have to realize it is your responsibility to not enable other people. And out of all the types, NFJs are all about enabling. Because guess what? NFJs want to be enabled because they want to feel special. And you want to be enabled, whether you like it or not. It's the truth. At least immature INFJs want to be enabled. So then they enable because they want to feel special. Most special. I make fun of INFPs and ENFPs and ESTJs and ISTJs for always going off about my titles, my creds, my credibility, my diploma, my achievements, my titles. When to you INFJs, it's all about my special. And I'm like, you guys are out of your mind. Why are you putting feeling special above being a true person? Because you're effectively a liar and a hypocrite at that point. And you're harming people around you. See, instead of being this amazing healer, you're nothing more than a virus at that point. Harming people around you because you're enabling them, right? You're literally enabling them. And viruses aren't alive. They're like little pieces of trash that just they're like pollution that just gathers up in the bloodstream and gets into cells, and it's just trash and pollution. That's all viruses are, right? You know, they're not actually alive. It's just DNA trash, and it's just trashing up the place. And you're trashing up the place by enabling people, allowing people to litter. Stop. You need to call them out if they litter. And take the time to actually throw away the trash yourself and make sure you're not littering yourself. It's pretty simple, guys. You have to do this. You can't reach enlightenment. You won't be able to develop your hero function and use your hero function responsibly Because your FE parent will finally tell your NI hero, hey, maybe you would want to, want the right thing instead of wanting the wrong thing. Because you're so focused on acceptance and gaining acceptance, and you're so focused on, being people-pleasing, and I'm going to heal these people, that you end up enabling them. Wow. Yeah, that's useful, huh? That's really great. That's really useful as you end up creating and buying into a system that ends up, for example, increasing human trafficking. Actually, there's an INFJ recently who was very supportive of the foster system and trying to consistently go all out and develop the foster system and get kids into foster care and whatnot. And then I told the INFJ, hey, just so you know, 88% of the children that have been recovered or rescued from sex trafficking are all currently registered in the foster care system in the United States. So maybe you might want to stop enabling that system and actually solve the problem with some truth. How about that? Okay. Guys, you need to develop your FE parent. Stop trying to feel special and enabling people, and instead be willing to use your mace and use that hammer and hit them in the head. You have to be willing to help people in a negative manner. Just like I'm doing to you now. I'm lighting you on fire. This is called negative help. This is TIFE. I'm taking my FE mace and I'm hitting you in the face with it. That's right, mace in the face. Don't forget that. Mace in the face. Because that's what you do. And then you use your sword to cut, right? But sometimes you just got to hit them in the face directly so that they will change. Because they won't change. Because if you're just, pulling your punches or pulling your throws or pulling your mace, I just got to be gentle. I don't want to hurt him too much. Wrong. They're not going to learn anything. Just like Jafar said in Return of Jafar, Aladdin 2, he said, you'd be surprised what you could live through, right? You'd be surprised what other people can live through. Criticize them. Use your FE parent to enforce proper social behavior and adhere to your own enforcing of proper social behavior. That is literally how you develop the gateway of your introvert intuition hero, so that you're not using it in a chaotic manner, you're using it in an orderly manner, and you become personally responsible, because then and only then your hero function starts to want the right things instead of the wrong ones. And then you've gained personal responsibility. And then there's the next gateway, which is extroverted sensing, inferior, infant, right? Infantile, where you're like, oh, my performance anxiety, and you're so afraid of performing, right? And you chaotically give into your fear as that water is trying to get through into your other field, and you're doing it wrong, and it's irresponsible, and it's too fast, or it's too slow, or it's or the pressure is too high, and you don't even know what you're doing, and because you're not willing to practice, and then you get afraid, and then what you do, you just turn the water off. You're just like, nope, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to bother figuring out how to irrigate this field properly. I'm not going to bother to go to the effort because I'm just going to fail. I'm just going to fail. And then your inner Eeyore just comes out. I'm just going to fail, so I'm not going to bother. And then I'm going to be super depressed and emo. And then I'm going to, have suicide attempts. And I'm going to light myself on fire on the hill. And then C.S. Joseph will come by and mock me while I'm burning. And he don't care. And because he don't care, I'm just going to burn here to death. Wow. Thank you so much, SE Inferior, for being so arrogant. That's the thing about the superego. The superego sees the subconscious as really, really arrogant. And TI Childs can become super arrogant because of the SE Inferior fear. Because fear, people either face their fear and develop that fear and turn that fear into courage, into bravery, for example, or they cover it up with pride. And how that manifests in an INFJ is TI Child God complex, where the INFJ's TI Child just automatically thinks they're right about everything, and everyone else has to listen to them. It's funny, I actually criticized an INFJ earlier today publicly on the Discord server, and a little bit privately, and I basically said to her, hey, your TI Child, you think you're right, you're not right, but you arrogantly believe that you're correct, but you never actually verified. And you're covering up, your inability to perform properly in this situation with pride, right? She was being prideful. How? Because she assumed. Assumptions come as a result of pride, whereas if you verify, instead of assuming, you jump to a conclusion and then you judge somebody with your TI child and you start thinking it's true when it's actually not. But a person with a proper TI child who is not covering up their insecurity with pride and not allowing themselves to become arrogant, they end up going to the person and asking them a question like, hey, did you actually do this? And they actually question them without labeling them or jumping to a conclusion or making a statement. They ask questions. And it's so interesting to me because that lack of verification proves that TI child, overactive TI child, aka also known as TI child God complex, that TI child all of a sudden is unwilling to listen. It goes out of its way because of their pride to make sure everyone else is listening to TI child, but they will not humble themselves enough to actually listen to somebody else. TI parent from an ENTP or from an ESTP, guess what? It's pessimistic. It kind of has a little bit of humility in it built in because it's a parent function, right? What is the parent function of the INFJ subconscious? Oh, it's TI parent, right? TI parent represents responsibility and thinking, responsibility and logic, and it will always verify and it will always ask before jumping to a conclusion. At least it should, especially in a subconscious when you're aspiring, right? Right? Even actual TI parent and ego messes up sometimes, but not often, probably less than everybody else. But INFJs, you have even less of an excuse because the aspirational side of your mind is potentially more powerful than an ego, just like everyone's is. And then because of that, right, which means technically an ESTP could be a better INFJ than you, a better paladin than you if you're not careful. Watch out, right? Maybe you should fix your performance instead of covering up with pride, because it's like, oh, if I'm prideful, that means I'm gonna look strong, right? That means I'm gonna look right. I'm gonna look correct. I'm gonna give off that perception of looking correct, of looking right, of looking strong, even though I have the water turned off in my irrigation system and there's no water actually going into my subconscious. And then you're just prideful. It's just a cover-up. It's just a cover-up. Because you're so scared of other people seeing that you can't perform worth a shit. And you're so scared of that. And then because of that fear, you don't even practice. How else do you think Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and all those people actually did well? Practice makes perfect, INFJs. And guess what? Because you have SE inferior when it turns into SE aspirational, out of all the types, you benefit the most from practice. You benefit the most. Practice is like this immediate healing for your soul, right? And it just goes on and on and on. It's like the best thing for your soul is practicing your skills, practicing your craft, practicing your strength. You have to come to the point, INFJs, to turn on the water. Turn on the water into your subconscious field, and after turning on that water, you finally admit that, yeah, I'm not performing well. Yeah, I'm not actually that strong. I'm trying to go out of my way to fulfill my life's purpose and improve fellow human beings, but I'm not strong enough to do it, which means I'm a bad example. And instead of covering it up with pride and getting this materialistic or this flimsy or this fake perception of myself to make it look like I know what I'm talking about, to make it look like I'm strong even though I'm weak, right? Because, that INFJ guy who has a six-pack in the gym, he still doesn't have the guts to actually criticize his friends to his face, and then he ends up mirroring them and smoking and being lazy and being failure to launch just like everyone else. But hey, at least he's got a six-pack, right? At least he looks strong. But does he actually have any strength of character? Nope. Isn't it the INFJ's job to build character in others? Isn't that a Templar's job to build character and find character in other people? How can they build character in others if they have no character themselves? How? Get over your performance anxiety. And the only way you're going to do that is if you humble yourself. Stop covering up your inability to perform with pride. Instead, engage in humility. Admit to yourself, I'm not that good at sex. I'm not that good at painting. I'm not that good at my job. I'm not that good at programming. I'm not that good at IT. You know, I'm not the best janitor. I'm not the best. Gosh, it's like you guys all think you're Ash Ketchum or some reason trying to be the best Pokemon master. Like, seriously, you're not. You should, accept that you're not and realize that, I'm an hero. I can be the best as long as I practice. But, that pride is inhibiting you from practicing to begin with. It's so annoying. And you know what's so funny? You guys think that you can cover it up in front of other people, but actually you can't. Everyone can see it a mile away. And you wonder why no one's actually loyal to you. You wonder why, right? You wonder. No one is actually loyal because they know that you're arrogant and you're prideful. So don't allow this to happen anymore. You can make the choice, INFJs. Oh, Mr. C.S. Joseph, I think you're being really too hard on us tonight because you're only talking about immature INFJs, and I'm just not that way. I'm sorry, but you're a human being. You're not God. And guess what? Because you're a human being, you can backslide and you can regress. All that progress that you've made, you can regress and go backwards at any moment. Do you know how I know? You have SI demon, which means you have no concept of self-discipline, which means you can go backwards any moment of every day. So this is something you have to deal with your entire lives. You have to make the active choice every single day to practice and humble yourself and gain progress with yourself. And then if you let go of that, willpower, you go backwards and you can go far and you lose all that progress. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're fucking 45 years old and you're still a loser. And you're fat, and you're bald, your hormones suck, and your performance in the bedroom is really bad. And then because of that, you can't date a woman to save your life because there's no way she'd ever be loyal to you. And so then instead, because of that, you swear off an entire gender and you feel so alone. And then all of a sudden you just decide to be gay because it's the only thing left, right? Wow, that's effective. There's so many INFJ men and women in my coaching practice that have done that. There's actually very few people who are actually truly homosexual when compared among INFJs versus the INFJs who have, chosen with their NI inferior because they're afraid that they're not good enough for women because they had a bad experience once and then they swear off an entire gender and then decide to be gay. Wow. That's so common, guys. That's actually super common among INFJs. Keep that in mind. How about you actually, practice the art of having sex and sexual activity. Practice, not hoeing around, but having a relationship with somebody. Stop being that TE trickster who's like, ooh, I'm going to have sex with as many people as possible and rack up my count. How about you stop being nymphomaniac with that ESTP subconscious, inferior subconscious. How about you stop doing that and instead actually invest everything into one person and have really great quality. Quality is always better than quantity, folks. It's always better. Okay? So invest in that one person, and don't enable them. Hold them accountable appropriately. Build them up. And you could build them up with a proper, healthy sexual relationship instead of just like these one-offs that you constantly have over and over and over again in the name of, well, I can heal them through sex. No, you're actually really damaging that person through sex, actually. You're not actually doing any kind of healing because they didn't earn it. You're actually inhibiting, you're making them believe that where they're at in their life is good enough to earn that reward when the reality situation is they're not, right? INFJ is like, how far have you reduced your standards for yourself for people of low standards? How far have you mirrored those people? How far have you allowed yourself to be in intimate relationships with other people who are very unhealthy, who don't take care of themselves at all, who are irresponsible, who are prideful themselves, who are foolish themselves, who can't handle money, for example? Like, how many times are you just going to constantly be in these stupid codependent relationships? I mean, you know that book, 10 Things Men Do to Mess Up Their Lives? That book, 10 Things Women Do to Mess Up Their Lives by Dr. Laura Schlesinger? Guess what? Those books were written to INFJs. Actually, yeah, they're written to INFJs. Realize this amongst your... realize that this is literally who you are in this case. You have to develop your SE inferior, and you do that through practice. Humble yourself. A woman, in order to gain beauty, has to humble herself and accept that I'm not beautiful. That's really hard for a woman to do. And then, especially if she's SE inferior, and then she humbles herself to actually read a book by Dr. Eric Berg and potentially adopt a diet that's specific to her body type, and then go into the gym and actually activate the 6 fat-burning hormones instead of always activating the 3 fat-producing hormones, you know, like insulin and cortisol, etc., right? Potentially adrenaline. You know, that would be a serious problem, right? That would be a serious, serious issue. You know, but it's, you know, but no, I have to have more caffeine. I have to have more sugar, right? And then insulin is in your system, and then good luck. And then you have extra glucose stored up in your liver. It's going to take days for you to get back onto fat burning again using your 6 fat burning hormones. But, you know, I mean, I got this, right? I can just cover up my insecurities with pride, you know. It's funny, like, I read a letter recently by a woman who watched my queen archetype lecture, and she said, you know, I realize that looks actually do matter. Yes, actually they do. And it's arrogant for women to think that they don't matter. Like, I'm sorry, men are in relationships for beauty. That's what they want from women. Think about it. The role of women is so far reduced in this day and age because guess what? We have microwaves. We have dishwashers now. We have appliances that those tasks were typically handled by the woman of the house, the mother, for example, the wife, in tradition. But now women have choices now. Now they have birth control. Now there's appliances. You know, now there's all these different things as a result that have ultimately reduced the roles of women, and they're trying to figure out what their roles actually are, right? And they're becoming more like males and doing activities that males do. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. It was even actually prophesied by Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, if you want to check that out. But the point is, you know, this woman admitted finally, yeah, actually kind of looks do matter, because what looks and beauty actually shows to a man is that you are responsible. That's what it shows to a man. It actually shows you that you're responsible. It shows you that you're healthy. It means that you're taking care of yourself. It means they can trust you, right? Just like a man who produces more than he consumes shows you as a woman that he's responsible. Maybe you'd want to get in a relationship with him because it's about responsibility. An ugly woman is an irresponsible woman. I'm sorry, but it's a fact. Accept the truth and have a better life, because if you accept that truth and you humble yourself and you actually go to the gym, you actually handle your diet, you get rid of all the toxic crap in your life, you actually go to bed at a certain time, because for some reason INFJs like have no circadian rhythm because their NI hero with their spinning around with their TI child without that FE parent in the way decides it's okay for them to sleep on a whim at 4 in the morning every single day trying to heal people on the internet in their Discord chat rooms, right? Instead of actually like taking responsibility and helping real people when they could actually be potentially going to the gym every morning by themselves, and maybe someone may see their amazing form because SE inferior can turn into SE aspirational, and then they have perfect squatting or deadlifting form, and then maybe that person can come up to them and ask them for help. Oh, but no, because they didn't position themselves for greatness to potentially help somebody because they're too busy trying to like heal the losers online instead of actually placing themselves in a position where they could actually be useful to a real human being instead of a human being online, right? Well, what's more useful? INFJs, what's more useful, right? Do you guys see what I'm saying here? You have to change your priorities. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Practice. You benefit from practice more than anyone. You can outperform anyone, right? You can have that beauty. Where you're at is not where you have to stay. What you have is not all that you can have. You're the head and not the tail. You are the top and not the bottom, right? You are made in the image of God. The man who would claim to be the son of God or is the son of God is an INFJ like you. Think about that. Think about how much responsibility that brings you. All you have to do is practice. Well, Mr. C.S. Joseph, I'm not sure about what I would like to practice. I'm like, what do you spend the majority of your time on? That isn't having a worthless result. Practice that, right? Become a musician. Ed Sheeran, he's an INFJ. How much practice did he put into it, right? Music really speaks to him. It means something to him. Music speaks to my son. I wonder if he'll go further than Ed Sheeran one day. I wonder. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. It's his choice. Maybe you INFJs should be making the right choice, right? Maybe you should. And then all of a sudden, your subconscious, the TI parent of your subconscious develops, and then all of a sudden you start being responsible with what you think, and you start verifying, and you stop assuming, you stop covering up with pride, and then you realize the truth. I don't perform that well. I don't look that well. I'm not that healthy. I'm not actually taking care of myself. Maybe I should find the truth, TI, and find the path, NI, to fix myself so that I am strong enough to fix others. And then all of a sudden, all of your performance anxiety goes away, and then you're using your SE inferior as SB aspirational and going through that cognitive gateway, that chakra gateway in an orderly manner, such that you have finally gained the humility to live, and your super ego is like, wow, this is awesome. You're responsible and you're humble. Great. Too bad I still don't want to work with you because you're foolish. Okay, wait a minute. Foolishness, the third gateway, the villain and the ally. Extroverted intuition, you know, that thing that makes you super paranoid, right? Just like INTJs, they have this paranoid problem. You're so worried that someone is going to not want you anymore. You're so worried about these things. That's a huge problem. And then like all of a sudden, you're not wanted, right? Well, it's because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're making that come true because your behavior of mistrust, because you start to take actions through your paranoia of mistrusting people, and then you start mistrusting them, and then you're actually taking concrete actions that proves to others, especially SI users, that you don't trust them because of your NE paranoia, right? And it's like, well, I want you, and you're forcing them to make sure that they want you too. And it's like, well, I want you, but I don't feel like you want me enough. It's like, well, wait a minute. That's because you're not aware of how much the other person actually wants you. You see what I'm saying, INFJs? Maybe you should figure that out. The paranoia of extrovert intuition is just absolutely ridiculous to me. It's so ridiculous. These are the people that like are constantly having to look at their spouses or their boyfriends or their girlfriends' phones all the time, constantly surveilling and seeing who they're talking to at all times. These are the people who are always have to be in the know about who they're interacting with at all times. Where were you? What were you doing? You know, constantly. They can't just accept that, you know, maybe their lover, their spouse is actually loyal to them, or maybe their boss has something really great planned for them. But instead it's like, no, he doesn't want me, and it just becomes an assumption. Because the villain is trying to tell the hero, you know, hey, maybe like, you know, you shouldn't want that. And maybe you shouldn't want so much because you're obviously wanting this person a little too much right now. You really want that interaction. You really want that person way too much. And then because of that, you're actually projecting them onto them something that they can't ultimately do for you. You are idolizing them, right? This is where you as an INFJ commit idolatry. Idolatry is like taking your spouse or your lover and turning them into an idol that you worship. They're not a god. They're just a human being. Stop putting that responsibility on them. It's not like you yourself are actually able to fulfill that responsibility for them either. What are you getting out of it? What are they getting out of it? Is it matched, right? If you're getting less than you're putting into something, you're either being manipulated or you have too high expectations. Level set your expectations and actually communicate with them. Bring it into the extroverted sensing realm. Bring it into reality. Get it out of NE and then ask them questions. Be like, and literally directly tell them. Humble yourself. Directly tell them. Is it not wise, actually? Be wise and ask them, hey, do you want me still? Think about that. Think about how powerful a question that would be. When you would humble yourself enough to ask, think about how you would do that, right? Become something far more, where at that point it's like, hey, I don't have to worry about him leaving me. I don't have to worry about him wanting me anymore because he tells me all the time how much he does actually want me, and then I don't have to be paranoid anymore. Listen to other people. Just like we're talking about you being prideful with your TI child, expecting everyone else to listen to you when you won't listen to anyone, which means you're not growing. And because you yourself are not growing with your TI child, you're not actually being a help to anyone, and you're not getting a strength. You're not practicing, right? It's the same thing with Extroverted Intuition ally or nemesis or villain. When you assume people are betraying you, they're going to betray you. Okay? And this is the chaotic transition. This is where you let your worry start creating concrete actions that lead to them not wanting you anymore. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you accuse them afterwards. See, I told you so. I told you you're going to leave me. When it was actually all on you to begin with. That's pathetic as well, INFJs. Why do you allow this to happen? Why? Why can't you just let people live their own lives and make your own choices? You expect everybody else to give you freedom of choice, but instead you have to monitor and control everyone else's choices because you're worried that they won't choose you anymore, which is like actually bullshit. There are people out there, people out there with SI Child and SI Inferior who are actually loyal to you and will remain loyal to you as a result, right? It's that loyalty that matters. That loyalty is everything, right? And they won't abandon you because you're not pushing them away by assuming they're going to betray you, right? How about, remember, guys, it's not about intentions. INFJs, you need to understand that, like, when you assume other people have dark intentions towards you, isn't that you projecting onto them because you have dark intentions yourself? If you're afraid or worried that your partner's going to cheat on you, is that because you actually want to cheat on them? Have you ever thought about that? Maybe that's actually what your villain function is actually telling you. I don't know how many times I've seen INFJs cheat on people. I've had an INFJ girlfriend cheat on me, and she cheated on tons of people. She cheated on me with tons of people, many, and put my health at risk and put me at personal risk, great personal risk. Luckily, I got out of it safely. But still, this happens consistently. So the third irrigation pipeway, the third gateway, get over your worry. Recognize that unless you have concrete proof, you have to verify. Unless you have concrete proof, it's just you being paranoid. Dismiss it as paranoia and just let it go. Let it pass through you. It doesn't matter. You'll be imbalanced. If the harder you hold on to sand, the faster it slips through your fingers. It's the same thing with any relationship or friendship in your life. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, INFJs. You have to recognize that truth. So, and you're ultimately foolish for doing this. You're foolish because you don't realize that you self-sabotage your own relationships. And then you end up loyalty checking people all because you're worried that they're not going to want you anymore. And if they won't want you anymore, like why are they still with you? Like, why are you even with them if you don't actually believe that they want you anymore? Maybe you should just get rid of them, move on. Oh, wait a minute. Or is it because you're codependent, right? Maybe your codependency is also increasing your worry. Maybe you should be more responsible and wise simultaneously to get rid of that worry, right? Because the wise thing to do is recognize that you should be doing the good thing, the right thing, and not judge people for actions they have not taken or actions that you cannot concretely prove that they did. Oh, they're just really sneaky. Okay. Yeah, people can be really sneaky out there. But like, I know you INFJs are always constantly keeping watch and checking for consistency at all times through SE inferiors. I know that you're constantly looking for contradictions all the time in what people do. But people line up sometimes, and you have to respect them for it. Stop worrying that they don't want you anymore when everything is lining up. It's not your fault it's not their fault that you keep forgetting because you live in the moment of all the times they actually have been loyal to you to begin with. Maybe you should stop pushing them away, right? So then, and really because you're so unaware of what other people think about you and you're at risk of believing just about anything with your TE trickster, then you start to believe that it's possible that they're not going to want you anymore, which is absolutely ridiculous. You can't do that. You just absolutely cannot do that. And it creates foolishness. This is when the unaware function and the villain function team up in their own cognitive loop, guys. This is literally what's happening. It's its own cognitive loop, okay? So then all of a sudden, wisdom needs to come into play, where you realize this is not good. It is not good for me to assume that I'm going to be betrayed. It is not good for me to expect that I'm going to be betrayed. It's not good for me to behave as if my lover, my partner, my parents, my child, or my coworkers are going to ultimately leave me or not want me anymore, because it's not good. It's not good. It is foolish. And then you wisely realize that you need to behave in such a way where you allow them to be who they are and do it through the concrete and not what is possible. Anything is possible. So you just think yourself into a rock, or you'll think yourself into an early grave, because anything is possible and you're willing to believe just about anything, and you're at risk of that. Take responsibility and be wise. Otherwise, you're just going to have this endless foolish behavior, which is why you're not able to develop your unconscious. You can become wise and recognize that, hey, these people are here. They're consistent. I'm verifying everything. I'm not assuming. I'm not having these crazy expectations. Actually, they really do love me. They really do want me. They are consistent. They're really loyal to me. They demonstrate to me all the time. They always remind me of it all the time. And I'm surrounded by totems and memories that prove it to me consistently. It's your responsibility to make sure that you put pictures and totems and reminders of your family, of the people that are close to you, of your friends, so you remember those good times, so you can see it there in a physical photo. That way that you can behave well and realize that, it's wise that, okay, yeah, we did have those times. That's actually real. And maybe I should stop being so worried all the time. As a result of letting go of that worry, you can become the best possible person. You can be wise and do the good thing. And that way you won't feel so worthless all the time. You won't be trying to go out of your way to feel special. You won't start overcompensating and over-contributing, starting to imagine hey, he'll want me, or she will want me, or my friend will want me, or my parents won't abandon me. They'll want me if I'm special. This is where you INFJs get in. You're all about being special. You're all about performing and trading your performance for loyalty, or trading you being special or looking special, hoping that you're wanted because you look special, right? That's a lie. It's a lie. And your FI critic is becoming wise so that you know the truth, that you know that you're special in some ways and you're not special in others. But being special has nothing to do with it. Stop telling yourselves the lies of, oh, I'm special and that means I'm going to have a great relationship. I'm always going to be wanted if I'm special. No, that's not true. You're always going to be wanted if you tell the truth. You're always going to be wanted if you give desire to other people. You're always going to be wanted if you perform well and give other people a good experience. Take it out of your unconscious. Get it into your ego where it belongs. Stop worrying. You won't have to worry if you know that you're not actually special and you're being wise about how you feel about things, instead of being approval seeking all the time. Having that unhealthy approval seeking behavior. That's ridiculous. It's that unhealthy approval seeking behavior that causes you to cheat on people. And it causes you to assume that people are going to not want you anymore. Probably because you have the reputation of being a cheater. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe that's, but wait, you don't, because you don't really, reputation doesn't mean that much to you because that's your trickster, right? Your TE trickster. Recognize your responsibility for wisdom. And then as a result of that, you verify everything instead of assuming or expecting. Don't expect trouble, because INFJs, with your Nih Hero, if you start expecting trouble, I guarantee you trouble will come to you. As soon as you stop expecting trouble, this is how you solve it. As soon as you stop expecting trouble, trouble won't come. Remember that. You create your own future because you have Nih Hero. It's literally like the law of attraction. You create your own future. And if you are literally worried about that future coming, then it will come. If you stop worrying about it, it won't come. That's how it works, guys. It's literally like this mind over matter situation. It's literally how it works for you guys. And that's how you get over your third gateway. And the fourth and final gateway, after the superego has seen your ego, at last it's responsible. Your subconscious, at last they're humble. And the unconscious, at last they're wise. All right, I am in. Let's build some irrigation. Open those pipes. I want that soul water quick, And then no longer you have those self-destructive behaviors where you're so full of bitterness and hatred for everyone that's ever betrayed you, even though you probably put them up to it and you're just not aware of it. Or, you know what I mean? Or all those people that abandoned you, or all those people that didn't want you, or all those people that harmed other people that you cared about, right? And you're so bitter and you're so angry and you hold on to it and you just want revenge. You want justice. Justice is everything. And you're so hateful towards it. And then finally, at long last, your superego, you realize that after all those bad experiences, you start to understand the truth that maybe you had a hand in those bad experiences yourself. Because here's the situation. The pain in your life may not be your fault, but then you realize the truth, that it is your responsibility. And you, because you're anti-hero, that means it's your choice. And you have a choice more than anyone to fix the problem. And then you realize that because you haven't made the choices to fix the problem or to use your willpower to change your circumstances on your own, that it's actually your own fault, right? That it is your responsibility, right? What others did to you may not be your fault. Actually, maybe it could actually be your fault. Maybe actually, but regardless, it's your responsibility. And then you take responsibility because that's what ISTJs do. ISTJs, healthy ISTJs, take responsibility because they realize that they won't have a legacy without taking responsibility because they have to have that reputation, right? And they realize the value of reputation. And then you're so unaware of reputation that because instead of being a hateful, demonic ISTJ, you become a very loving ISTJ, where you actually start to remember all the good things in your life and not just the bad ones, because you have responsibly set and humbly set up all the totems and created all the totems of all the good memories in your life around you, and they remind you of all the good things in your life and drown out all the bad things in your life, such that all those totems, guess what they become? The physical manifestation of the Library of Alexandria right before your eyes. Those totems themselves, all those stored memories around you. A totem, a physical object like a photo or a sticky note that you stored a memory in like the physical environment. Those totems itself, guess what that becomes? Your Library of Alexandria. That becomes your legacy, right? That becomes your philosopher's stone, your I win button for life, right? Because all those totems represent all those stored memories, and then that is your Library of Alexandria. They represent that innate key knowledge that you need to be successful in life, such that those totems become your legacy. Like Jesus Christ's legacy to the planet, which he has many legacies. One of them is like the concept of logos, right? The logos, the truth, right? I am the way, truth, and the life, right? Logos, truth, T.I. Child, divine T.I. Child. Think about that. That's his legacy. His legacy of absolute truth that you have stored in your library of totems to show you all of your memories of who you really are and where you have come from, and as it serves as a reminder, and you can share that library with other people, and you can be an example to other people and get them to think about things properly, and you're able to show them the truth, right? And then you're able to mete out proper justice upon the world and take an accounting and be a proper judge upon other people. Why else is it said that Jesus is going to be the judge of all humanity at the end? Think about that. Because of ISTJ, angelic superego, right? Because you are able, through your totems, through your physical Library of Alexandria, your legacy, that you are able to understand the truth and speak it and have, something truly amazing that changes the consciousness of mankind forever. It's like the pyramids of Giza. They're still there thousands of years later. The Bible, it's still there thousands of years later, right? For example, not that because the Bible's, that's kind of real subjective. The words of Jesus are really there thousands of years later. Think about that. What is your legacy of absolute truth going to be? And how are you going to get there? Well, you're going to get it through cognitive integration. You're going to get it by getting over your irresponsibility, by getting over your fear and your pride, and embracing humility, embracing responsibility. You're going to get over your worry, and then you're going to embrace wisdom instead of worry, such that at that point in time that you no longer hate your fellow human beings and you're no longer bitter, but you actually love them, and you realize that you're loyal to them by sharing your legacy, your totems, your Library of Alexandria through your superego with your fellow human beings, such that you'll be remembered forever. Remembered for bringing people closer to the truth and exposing the lies and bringing order and bringing mankind a future, with superego and Nih aspirational, and ensuring their future, ensuring a better tomorrow, ensuring, truth is available to everyone, ensuring freedom forever and ever, and destroying those arbitrary rules that don't mean anything, and bringing upon truth of law of truth, a land or a future or an ideal society or planet for humanity where everyone is acting and behaving in the truth instead of these random arbitrary rules. That's your legacy, that legacy of absolute truth, which is what you, through your divine TI child, augmented directly into your angelic superego, that is what you are capable of achieving when you reach nirvana, when you reach enlightenment, when you reach cognitive integration. This is who you are, INFJs, and this is what you can become. And I'm so excited about that, because if you can get through all this other crap and start becoming who you are meant to become, this will ultimately be your gift to the world, which is the Philosopher's Stone of your superego, where you can literally have that legacy of absolute truth, and it will stand tall forever and ever and ever. If you found this lecture useful, helpful, educational, enlightening, please leave a comment in the Patreon section, because I like reading the comments in Patreon, and you guys don't do it very often. I realized that this lecture was insanely long, but it really meant a lot to me, because I want to have my son watch it someday, and there's a few INFJs out there that are really bothering me right now that I need them to watch this as well, so that they can improve themselves and become the best version of themselves, and that really means a lot to me, guys. Thank you all for being my patrons. Thank you all for being members of this community. You truly are keeping the lights on. You truly are. I'm just so thankful, and I'm so appreciative of all of you. Thank you for everything that you have done. So with that being said, I'll be on later, so I'll see you guys tonight.